Hi guys, I have to laugh. Uh, I just did this video. It came out at 23 minutes, and there was no sound. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. So I'm gonna try and do this quickly, concisely, and get it down to 15 minutes if I can. Bear with me if I'm speaking fast, and I hope everything comes out clearly. This is about the Korean War, Prelude to War 1950. By 1949, South Korean forces had reduced the active number of communist guerrillas in the south from 5,000 to 1,000. However, Kim Il-sung believed that the guerrillas weakened the South Korean military and that a North Korean invasion would be welcomed by much of the South Korean population. Kim began seeking Stalin's support for an invasion in March 1949, traveling to Moscow to attempt to persuade him. Serious border clashes between South and North occurred on August 4, 1949, when thousands of North Korean troops attacked South Korean troops occupying territory north of the 38th parallel. The 2nd and 18th Infantry Regiments of Rokhal repulsed initial attacks in Koskabong above the 38th parallel and Chungmu, and at the end of the clashes, Rokhal troops were completely routed. Stalin initially did not think the time was right for a war in Korea. Chinese Communist forces were still embroiled in the Chinese Civil War, while US forces remained stationed in South Korea. By spring 1950, he believed that the strategic situation had changed. Mao's Communist forces had secured final victory in China. US forces had withdrawn from Korea, and the Soviets detonated their first nuclear bomb, breaking the US atomic monopoly. As the US had not directly intervened to stop the communist victory in China, Stalin calculated that they would be even less willing to fight in Korea, which had much less strategic significance. The Soviets had also cracked the codes used by the US to communicate with the embassy in Moscow, and reading these dispatches convinced Stalin that Korea did not have the importance to the US that would warrant a nuclear confrontation. Stalin began a more aggressive strategy in Asia based on these developments, including promising economic and military aid to China through the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Assistance. In April 1950, Stalin gave Kim permission to invade the South under the condition that Mao would agree to send reinforcements if needed. Stalin made it clear that Soviet forces would not openly engage in combat to avoid direct war with the United States. Kim met with Mao in May 1950. Mao was concerned the US would intervene but agreed to support the North Korean invasion. China desperately needed the economic and military aid promised by the Soviets. However, Mao sent more ethnic Korean PLA veterans to Korea and promised to move an army closer to the Korean border. Once Mao's commitment was secured, preparations for war.
Merry Christmas,
Sorry about that. That kind of surprised me. Hopefully that won't happen again. Christmas songs. December, yeah. Okay. So I'd finished reading what I wanted to read anyway. So just once Mao's commitment was secured, preparations for war accelerated. The reason I've read this to you is because it has striking similarities to what's going on right now. It appears the same kind of situation with Russia and China, backing up North Korea, but not doing it overtly, kind of below the radar, behind the scenes. They are supporting North Korea, while at the same time saying that they're supporting the UN resolutions and trying to find a way for nuclear war not to break on the Korean Peninsula. I don't believe that's what they're doing. I believe this is what they're doing. Prelude to war. Second reason I believe that is because China sent an envoy to visit North Korea, and Trump hailed it as a big move. A top Chinese envoy landed in North Korea on Friday in a trip hailed as a big move by US President Donald Trump, who has urged Beijing to pile pressure on its nuclear-armed ally. I read a recent report that said that when they went over to North Korea, the Chinese envoy, when they got to North Korea, they did not talk about nuclear weapons at all. So again, with them saying, we're supporting UN resolutions and we're trying to find a way to peacefully resolve the situation on the Korean Peninsula, when they actually go, they don't speak about it at all. So don't believe everything that you're hearing in regards to Chinese influence. They do have influence, and what they're doing is they're encouraging North Korea to continue on its path, where they will step in when it all jumps off. The next story is the top US general would say no if Trump ordered North Korea nuke attack. An Air Force general has shockingly revealed that if Donald Trump ordered him to drop a nuclear bomb on North Korea, he would say no if he thought it was illegal. It appears Donald Trump's ability to launch a nuclear strike is being restricted by not just this Air Force general, but by Congress seeking ways of trying to restrict Trump's ability to launch a first strike, and also by South Korea saying that Donald Trump can't launch a nuclear strike on North Korea without South Korea's consent. Then we've got North Korea developing a ballistic missile, which I think is a distraction because they already have 70 missiles. Fair enough, they can't launch nuclear weapons, but they can still launch conventional missiles. And I feel like Kim Jong-un is similar to Donald Trump in the sense that he pays attention to the media, he picks up the news reports and things like that, and he's got hackers as well. So they'd be aware of the satellite that goes over their country. Again, stop doing that. No, you don't. Sorry about this. The computer's deciding to do its own thing. But yeah, it doesn't appear that Kim Jong-un would be unaware of a satellite going over his country from the Washington-based think tank 38 North. So I feel like it's a distraction. You know, look over here, shiny, shiny, I'm building something, while at the same time, something else is going on somewhere else. I hope all this is being recorded. Don't have to do it again. Then Russia launches a new ballistic missile submarine. So Russia has been aggressively entering into the Atlantic in recent days. I read a report from the UK Navy that said they haven't seen this much activity submarine-wise from Russia since the Cold War. So it appears that Russia is building up to something or preparing itself for something, positioning itself strategically throughout the Atlantic. And as we have some suspicions that the east coast of America could be attacked by submarines that have, you know, positioned themselves along the coast stealthily, we've got this new missile where submarines are hard enough to detect already, but this one has improved stealth capabilities and a reduced sound signature, making it even harder to detect the submarine, even if they wanted to. I don't know how stealthy it is, and I don't know how much sound they've managed to reduce, but we already know that they find it difficult to track submarines, which is why they're the most deadliest form of the weapons, because, you know, they can submerge for a really long time, they're hard to detect, they can launch missiles and nuclear missiles, real danger. And now we've got this even quieter one. So I don't know what they're planning to do with that, but what I do know is that they are aggressively entering into the Atlantic, and there's a lot more activity going on, activity not seen since the Cold War. This particular story here is one that I've seen before and have posted a video about before, but it's come up again in a report from November the 18th, and this one says that North Korea has a stockpile of the plague disease which it could unleash in just 10 days' time. 10 days from the report would be the 28th of November. Excuse me. It's relevant to me because I did that video yesterday on the 29th of November, being the 70th year since Israel was declared a nation by the UN, which they did that in November 1947. So the 70-year mark is the 29th of November this year, in just over a week's time. And we've got this potential for biochemical weapons being used in just 10 days' time, which is the 28th. I don't know if they're actually going to use them, but according to this report from the Daily Star, they really could. They also have stockpiles of smallpox, anthrax, yellow fever, typhoid, and cholera. As far as typhoid and cholera go, I'm not too sure on the contagiousness of those two diseases, but I definitely know that these three diseases are incredibly contagious. Anthrax is less of a disease, but smallpox, I've done research on that, and it's not pretty. We then move on. Sorry, this was all better in my previous video, but now I'm trying to make it faster, make sure it's recorded. A 9/11 style attack, North Korea's cyber war targets US aerospace amid fears of hacked planes. The US government has admitted that North Korea has targeted its aerospace industry in a shock revelation amid growing fears that enemy states could hack into planes mid-flight to cause a devastating attack. The US government issued an alert this week that recent cyber attacks from the North Korean regime have targeted its aerospace, telecommunications, and financial industries. When we look at the targeting of financial industries, it goes back to the potential for the stock market to crash or to freeze. If the financial industry is hacked, then most likely that would happen, causing economic collapse, and following on from that is, you know, potential for civil war and martial law. You know, gun regulations and all sorts of things could come into effect if that was to happen. They're saying here that they could possibly take control of a passenger jet mid-flight and probably cause it to fly into a building or down it in the ocean or something. That's interesting because we all heard about the reports of the US warships that have been crashing not into each other but into other boats or ships this year. And then we've got a report which was published again November the 18th. So it seems like the 18th was a really big day for world news. This one is saying another US ship has collided. Another one. It's not a coincidence. It's not coincidence. I said in another video that I made about these crashes before this last one, before this fifth one, I said that I think it's hacking. It's just unusual to hear reports of a highly advanced US warship crashing into another ship. The only way that I think that could happen is hacking navigation, either shutting down navigation completely so you're unable to avoid a collision, or taking control of the navigation so you actually steer into a collision. The rest of the story goes on and says a US warship collided with a Japanese commercial tugboat in Japan's Sagami Bay on Saturday, marking the fifth time this year that a ship in the US Navy's 7th Fleet in the Pacific has been involved in the crash. It's like they're decimating the 7th Fleet. They've taken out, well, not really taken out, but they've caused major damage to 5 of these ships that need to be taken out of service to be repaired and then possibly put back into service. What happens after that, I don't know, but this is definitely something nefarious. Something is going on here, and they haven't revealed to us why these ships keep crashing into each other, and they've ordered an investigation. I think they terminated the 7th Fleet's general, but I don't think it's his fault. The 5 of them crashing in a year is not coincidence. The next report goes on to say that China and Russia are preparing to shoot down US missiles as tensions mount over North Korea. This brings us back to the Korean War and the Chinese envoy that's been sent over there. There was also a Russian envoy that was sent over, I think it was 2 months ago. So Russia and China are talking to North Korea, but we're not hearing the results of those conversations. And if there are any results being shared, it's that, for example, the Chinese envoy didn't even discuss nuclear weapons when they were there, or nuclear launches. These two, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, they are both dictators of their countries. They are both seeking more power, more control, and they're not going to accomplish that by supporting the US. So when Donald Trump is, unable to say anything negative about Vladimir Putin, God knows why, and is praising Xi Jinping for going over to North Korea, I think he's being played. He's being misled. These people are not supporting you. They may support the UN resolutions on the face of it, but, back channel, behind the doors, no eyes looking, they're supporting North Korea. And in the event of war, they will be supporting North Korea. That's just a fact. The last story I've got on here is one that's recently developed. Apparently there was a NATO drill in Norway where an enemy poster at the military drill had the name of the Turkish president on it, Erdogan. And Erdogan, as a result, pulled out the 40 soldiers that he had in the NATO exercise. The NATO chief apologized for the mistake, but Erdogan rejected that apology. So what comes next is my question. If you are so offended by something that's happened in NATO and you're unwilling to accept the apology, what are you going to do? The only thing I can think is there's a plan for Turkey to withdraw from NATO. It seems like something right out of Designated Survivor. There's a show I watched on Netflix, and one of their storylines was something to do with Turkey threatening to pull out of NATO, and that could be what's going on here. Because when I look at the world map and I look at where Turkey is, we've already got Belarus is an ally of Russia. Russia has already annexed part of Ukraine. Russia is in Syria. Iran is in Iraq. And Saudi Arabia has got some political maneuvering going on that I don't quite understand yet. I'm going to look into it some more to find out exactly the potential, to find out the potential of what's going on there. problems in Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Chad, and Niger. And then you've got Turkey sitting right here. It's a strategically positioned country at the end of the day. When you look at it, there's a clear dividing line coming down. Saudi Arabia, I don't know what they're going to do. They appear to support the US, but at the same time, they're being aggressively pursued by Iran. And then you've got Iranian soldiers in Iraq as well. The war in Iraq to take control back from ISIS is, winding down. They said they, liberated Iraq basically. And once that's done, I'm guessing that the forces that are there, a lot of the forces will be withdrawn. That could be an opportunity for Iran to move in, take over, and then they're right on the doorstep of Saudi Arabia. And also, pretty close to Israel as well. When I think about Turkey as well, Turkey holds missile defense systems for the US, so that could be a potential problem as well. What I'm seeing is a cutting off of Europe basically. It's a move to the west is what I'm seeing here from Russia, and then you've got China, which I believe will step into things even more. But right now, their focus is on the Asian peninsula over there, like the Asian countries. That's where their focus is at the moment. This is the East meets West, the Gog and Magog, the goat and the ram. It's all coming together. The Bible has already told us about all these things. We've seen the signs in the sun, in the moon, and the stars. We've been told about the 70-year deadline from when Israel has decreed a nation to go and rebuild, and that was in 1947. The 70-year mark comes up on November the 29th. We've got the potential for, plague-laden missiles to be launched in just 10 days' time. All of this, I don't know if it's going to happen, because obviously I'm not in control of any of that, and if I was, it wouldn't happen. But from what I can see, there's an advance towards the west, and Turkey may decide to withdraw from NATO, which would put Europe in some jeopardy, as well as putting Israel itself in some jeopardy as well. And this is where we are in the world at the moment. This is where we've come to. So I just wanted to bring all of that to your attention, because I think it's all important. There's so many stories popping up, and it's widespread. It's from financial to economic to military, going on and on and on. So what I've tried to do in this video is just to put it all into one video. I haven't given you my full analysis on every story that I've looked at, just because that would take too much time. But from what you can see, just from the headlines that you're reading, things are really, really ramping up. The things that concern me in particular is the plague, because that killed 450 million people. So it's an incredibly infectious and dangerous disease. The potential for Turkey to withdraw from NATO also concerns me as well, putting Europe in danger and giving Russia that kind of C-shaped opposition line. If you've got a military mind, you can look at the map and you can see the potential problems that would occur if Turkey was to move over to Russia. And Ukraine's already had some of it taken over by Russia, and Belarus is an ally of Russia, as well as being an ally of Iran, who is in Iraq and Syria, as well as Russia being in Syria. And then you've got Saudi Arabia. Whatever's going on there at the moment is significant politically, and could also be significant militarily as well. So we'll see what happens. All we can do is really wait to see if any of these things come to fruition. But, Russia's a big player, China's a big player, US is a big player, and they're clashing. They're clashing at the moment. And from what I can see, I just wanted to bring to your attention as well, is the UK forces are saying that they're seeing a lot of activity in the Russian forces, going past into the Atlantic, so going past the United Kingdom here into the Atlantic. And what I'm thinking is, if Russia and North Korea and China are working together, it's possible that North Korea could slip out of the Sea of Japan up into the Bering Sea, around the top of Russia through East Siberian Sea, and come all the way down through the Norwegian Sea into the Atlantic. And that could be, that could be the plan, where they set up along the east coast of the United States. From the iPet Goat video that I watched, I made a little video about it. In the scene where they come outside the school, this is where the school is that George Bush went to when they read the Pet Goat story. It's in Florida. And then you've got like the Twin Towers that are represented, or the Statue of Liberty that was represented up here in New York. And between the New York space and the Florida space in the video, it has the image of the shark or a whale, or whatever. It's a submarine, that's what we're going to say it is. But it's positioned between the two. So it appears that, there could be some form of stealthy submarines or stealth submarine lined up along the coast here. Maybe not so close, maybe a little bit further out. I don't know. I don't know if they're there. I don't know if they're going there. But the potential for it all to happen is big enough for me to make a video and to try and warn people about it. That's the end of my video. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope it wasn't too boring. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days with Turkey. We'll see what happens in 10 days with the potential plague missile. And we'll see what happens between November the 29th and December the 3rd. Hopefully nothing does, but again, it's worth warning if there's a potential for it to happen. Again, just for clarification, there's no rapture talk here. I'm not talking about people being raptured. I'm just talking about the current situation. Why does it do that? Talking about the current situation and how it possibly could lead to World War, and to show you how parts of the Bible, the prophecies from the Bible, have been fulfilled and are being fulfilled and will be fulfilled. So get yourselves right with God and make sure that you don't end up in hell. Okay? Have a good evening, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are.